Developers absolutely hate Xbox's latest move. What is up, y'all? I am Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we get on and we talk about Xbox stuff. The latest news, rumors, games, accessories, pretty much anything I want to talk about as long as it's about Xbox in some way. And in today's video, we're going to discuss Xbox's latest move that may be its most controversial yet. How Avowed is defying expectations in this key area, and whether or not you should be worried about another downturn in hardware sales for Xbox. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Novium. A lot of times, I choose to buy things for no other reason other than the fact that I think it is cool and I think it would look good in my own little man cave. Stuff like Novium's Interstellar Edition hover pen. Novium creates unique, innovative, high-end products that aim to inspire curiosity and develop creativity. There's no denying that this hover pen is cool, but it also provides an unmatched writing experience. It feels smooth. If you're stumped, you're looking for a gift for someone, whether it's for Valentine's Day, their birthday, any other occasion, these make a really great, original, and timeless gift idea. As the name implies, this hover pen is inspired by space. The Interstellar Edition is a ballpoint pen that comes in 4 different colors, and you can refill it with new ink cartridges whenever you run out. It's also really fun to spin it around. If you want to step it up a notch, really feel classy, really feel cool, they have a fountain point pen called the Future Edition that you can interchange to a ballpoint pen as well. If you want to level up your workspace, your gaming desk, literally any other aspect of your life, you can go on over to Novium's website and use my code XboxReady for 20% off and free international shipping. It's only good for the next 48 hours though, so act quickly. Thanks again to Novium for sponsoring this video. Microsoft, Xbox, they're no stranger to controversy. We've seen them in the headlines for laying off a bunch of gaming division employees. To a lesser extent, you can label their recent move to a more multi-platform business controversial as well. Now, to be fair, Microsoft, Xbox, they're not the only tech company out there pissing people off, causing controversy after controversy. But well, this is an Xbox channel, so we're gonna talk about the Xbox stuff. And Microsoft, Xbox, they sat down and they were like, you know what? All that other stuff that games media, that tech media has been getting up in arms about, we're not gonna care about that. We're not gonna lay low. We're not gonna wait for things to blow over. Let me tell you about something that is sure to piss off a number of people. Let's talk about generative AI in games. Muse is something that they revealed last week. It's this generative AI development tool that is being built in collaboration with Ninja Theory. It's an AI model that says it can generate game visuals, controller actions, or both. They showed off how Muse was able to study Ninja Theory's bleeding edge and then generate game visuals based off of that. Satya Nadella chimed in, and I guess this is not really a surprise, but he was like, whoa, this is like the industry's wow moment. Isn't this great, guys? He says that Microsoft is already planning on using generative AI in a multitude of games and a lot of games in their upcoming catalog. He says it's just very cool. One thing that we wanted to go after was using gameplay data. Can you actually generate games that are both consistent and then have the ability to generate the diversity of what that game represents and then are persistent to user mods? The cool thing is, what I'm excited about is we're going to have a catalog of games soon that we will start using these models, or we're going to train these models to generate and then start playing them. In fact, when Phil Spencer first showed it to me, oh man, he's bringing Phil into this. Phil's going to have to do another round of interviews where he explains how generative AI in Xbox games is a good thing, where he had an Xbox controller and this model basically took the input and generated the output based on the input, and it was consistent with the game. Wait, what? That doesn't make it. Now, this is the first time that Xbox has messed around with AI. They've gone on a record and say they use AI in a lot of their player moderation efforts. They have an AI chatbot, but this is the first time we've heard about it being used actually in games. And as you can imagine, the opinions about this are very split. I read somewhere that Joseph Fares was like, yeah, we should lean into AI, even though it's kind of scary. We should learn to work with it. Strauss Zelnick over at Take-Two was like, no, AI is totally cool. It totally won't lead to job losses. Yeah, right. But the further you go down the rung, people are generally like, this sucks. This is a dumb idea. And to help talk more about it, I'm gonna cut to a segment I filmed last week with my buddy Matt. Microsoft, obviously as a company, excluding the gaming stuff, we're very interested in the AI space. That's trickling down to Xbox. We know that they have certain partnerships with AI companies to bring like AI-powered NPCs to their games or like AI dialogue that could be generated on the spot. And now they have this new thing called Muse, which is specifically for game development. And they're trying to pitch it as like, oh, it's great for game preservation because AI can like analyze these old games and figure out how to port them to modern day consoles. And they're trying to pitch it as like, it's going to empower our developers. It's going to make their jobs easier. You know, the standard kind of stuff that these companies try to say about AI, whatever AI that they're working on. It's going to make your life easier. Do you want to take a guess at the online reception, especially from devs like on Twitter and stuff? Do you want to just take a stab in the dark about how they feel about Muse?
I'm gonna go ahead and say negative.
There we go.
I'm gonna take a huge risk and say they say negative. And the problem is because the devs know where this is going, and it's them not having jobs. Yeah. Right. Like that's ultimately what this comes down to, and that's every AI tool that comes out that is going to help someone do their job better in every industry, not just gaming. You go, oh, cool. Like I'm a guy who does this. This AI tool is helping me do it a little better. Love this, right? The problem is you are digging your own grave, right? Like my day job is in kind of marketing and stuff, so I'm really tuned into this world. The vast majority of content you see right now that will show up on any feed, Reels, TikTok, whatever, has some kind of AI built into it. It's AI is taking over. Like it's taking over all of content creation, and it's going to continue to do that for two reasons. Because on one side of it, you have companies like Microsoft, whose job is to ultimately make more money for shareholders, not make a good product, right? Like the board and CEO and all the leadership of Microsoft is legally bound by fiduciary duty to do the best thing for stockholders, which means infinite growth, right? This is the way to do that. And then on the other side of it, and this is this part that makes me the saddest, is that the audience does not care. They don't care if it's AI. Go look
You don't think that gamers will care, like if AI shows up in their game?
Zero. They will make a big deal about it. They will complain on Twitter. That game will not sell one less copy because of it, because the people complaining about it weren't going to play that game anyway. This is how I know this, because it's actually been tested, right? Go look at open up Instagram and search for like cool gaming art or something like that. You're going to see millions of AI generated images with hundreds of thousands of likes from people saying how cool a thing is. Usually one guy in the comment goes, oh, more AI slop. And then someone replying back in it, it's the future, baby, get on with it, or whatever, right? Like, like the audience has shown that they are stupid and do not care, right? Like, so
I guess I'm thinking about like recent AI controversies, like, oh, there's AI in the Secret Wars intro for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
There was certain AI assets, and what game was it? It might have been a recent Call of Duty. And I assume that it's just doing fine.
Dude, here's a dark secret, right? Is that people are using AI all the time and then not even telling people, and it's still being passed off as human-made creations. Go look at any graphics department in any ad agency, right? And you will see people using AI generative fill in Photoshop like madmen on freaking all kinds of stuff, just going nuts with it, right? And just turning in the work, and no one's going to be able to tell. Because the other problem is that a year ago, 2 years ago even, right, AI would make melty, weird things, right?
Yeah.
And even in motion and video right now, it's still, if you know what you're looking for, you can see it. If you kind of know like the house styles of AI, you can see it. But it is impossible to tell AI from a human created thing if the AI is done effectively by someone who knows what they're doing. Yeah, so AI is going to take over again because of two reasons. It's cheaper for the companies, and the vast majority of the audience will not care, which is a bummer. I'm not for this. But that's, yeah.
Well, because you think about, this wasn't necessarily AI, but it was procedurally generated content. And Starfield, that was incredibly lame for me. I liked in past Bethesda games and current RPGs these handcrafted worlds.
Yep.
You know, I can really feel, like I'm playing Avowed right now. I'm like, someone put a lot of thought and care into designing this specific area or this dungeon, because it just feels fun to explore. It's interesting. It makes me want to keep looking in every nook and cranny. And when I think about in my time in Starfield, I would come upon this like procedurally generated camp or outpost or something like, oh, what's the story here?
Yeah,
I see like dead bodies around. What happened? And it's like, no, it's just the game kind of spit out this generic environment, scattered a bunch of dead bodies around to illustrate that it was abandoned or whatever. And that's it. There was no deeper meaning behind it. I felt no reward for exploration. And I think that is definitely the fear, that we're gonna just get these worlds and games and environments that feel like almost there, like you know, it is technically a new area to explore or whatever, but it's just not hooking you in the same way that games in the past would have.
Absolutely right. And AI is, it's already good enough that like it can mask that for a lot of people and they won't notice or whatever. But here's why I think Microsoft has an opportunity. And this goes back to the earlier part of this conversation about this idea of small teams making 8-hour single-player games, right? And when you do that, you can sell the human aspect of it, right? Like, this was made by a group of artists that wanted to tell a story that was something inside them that they're trying to spit out. One of my favorite quotes about art, I think it's a Mark Rothko quote, is that the idea that art is an empathy engine, right? Like, what am I trying to do here? I have a feeling deep inside of me, and I can tell someone, hey, I feel sad. That doesn't really work. That doesn't make another person feel sad, right? But if I write the bad ending of The Witcher 3, and then someone goes and plays that, or The Last of Us, right? And someone plays that moment, all of a sudden they are having that feeling that you brought out of yourself and put into a piece of art, right? That's a selling point. That's a thing you can do. That's how, if you were anti-AI and you want to fight against the machine overlords, right? Lean into that. Get more of that stuff. Put your money against those things, right? And if I'm a company
trying to draw out your personal experience, that would be, I'm not saying that AI couldn't try to replicate it, but it would be harder.
Well, and even if it did replicate it, I'm still more inclined to, if the human, if they sell me on the human part of it, right? Go, hey, this game was made by this and this team, and they thought about this. I think about the behind the scenes on Hellblade, right? And they bring in people who literally suffer from schizophrenia to like, like make the game better and stuff like that. And you know, people can talk about how well that was executed or anything like that, but they at least like brought in this human element.
Yes.
And I think especially in that first game, you feel that, right? Like that came through, right? Which I don't know if that's something an AI could ever truly capture in a way that really hits for someone who's looking for it.
AI sometimes can be cool. A lot of the stuff that I see, especially with the like AI voice mod that they have going on in Skyrim, where you can talk to an NPC like they're an actual person, that's pretty cool, but also pretty scary. Let's get off of the scary stuff for a sec and move on over to some good news. Obsidian's highly anticipated fantasy RPG Avowed launched February 18th, and so far it seems to be doing pretty dang well critically. From my understanding, it was doing pretty well in terms of Game Pass engagement, but the one question mark that always hovers above these first-party releases is whether or not they're selling well. Xbox has gone on the record and admitted that yes, a game being on Game Pass will cannibalize its sales, and they stopped reporting sales numbers a long time ago in many facets of their gaming division. But Carrie Patel, the game's director, as part of this newsletter for Bloomberg, touched on sales specifically, and she said players have raved about the game and the company said it is happy with sales so far. This is super encouraging because for the moment, right now, it seems that Xbox can have its cake and eat it too. They can have a game day one on Game Pass, generate that engagement, generate subscription signups, while also selling a decent amount of copies. Maybe not as many as they would have if they ditched the whole day one strategy with Game Pass, but still a decent amount. I imagine that the majority of those sales are on Steam. I'd be curious to see a further breakdown of sales on Xbox console or through the Xbox PC app. Of course, we're never gonna get that. And the fact that it's selling well on Steam, you can kind of see Xbox's logic of like, oh, you know what, release it on Game Pass on the Xbox platform, people buy it on Steam, why not put it on PlayStation too to sell a little bit more copies? There's some other interesting stuff in this newsletter as well. Carrie Patel sort of alleges that they may use Avowed as the base basis for a game in the future. I think the bones of this game are really solid. I see some people complaining on IG Reels and TikTok like, oh, you can't knock stuff off the table like you can in Skyrim. This is doo-doo. That's not really a make or break situation for me, but I would love to see, if not a sequel to Avowed, something sort of similar to this game when it comes to exploration, the parkour mechanics, the combat. I mean, if the Outer Worlds can get a sequel, I feel like Avowed can too. I was also reading some crazy stuff about how many different iterations Avowed went through during its time in development. Like at one point, it was supposed to be like a fantasy RPG meets Destiny 2, you can kind of see that back and forth that they were grappling with, especially if you reference the original teaser trailer that they put out a few years back. That trailer had everyone believing that it was going to be like Skyrim 2.0, dark, gritty, and then when they finally came out with some gameplay, they were like, what the hell, this is like a bait and switch, this is nothing like Skyrim. Going back to the Game Pass element though, we know that it's either boom or bust. For a game like Avowed that, got a lot of media coverage, that is from a well-known studio, I could see how a game like that could still sell copies despite being on Game Pass. That may not be the case for smaller games though. A lot of these indie smaller games, a lot of what they say is, oh my gosh, we're so grateful to Game Pass and to Xbox because of the exposure that our game received by being a part of that library. But very rarely do you see the developers of something like Planet of Lana be like, oh yeah, we sold a ton of copies despite being on Game Pass. And apparently the devs of Wizard 101 feel the same way. They went as far as to say that Game Pass is a double-edged sword. Now, I was a little confused when he made these comments because I was like, wait a minute, isn't that game, I don't know too much about it, but isn't it like a free-to-play situation? Why would it need to be on Game Pass anyway, unless they were gonna do like ultimate perks? But I do agree that yes, for smaller developers, specifically Game Pass, is a double-edged sword. You get that exposure, but you may not sell as many copies of your games. This is consistent with conversations that I've had with other developers, but it's difficult to pin down a hard and fast rule when it comes to, whether or not a game should be or should not be on Game Pass, because everyone has a different deal. From my understanding, some people get their money up front to help get their game over the finish line. Some people get like engagement-based pay, like based on how many people are playing their game during any given time. Game Pass is one of those things where overall I think it's good for the consumer because, we're getting just a ton of games for a fraction of the cost that we would be paying if we bought all of those games separately. But I could see how on the development side, on the studio, on the publishing, distribution, it's not so black and white. No matter what, Game Pass looks like it's here to stay. That seems to be a huge part of Xbox's strategy going forward, especially as console sales continue to tumble. We got another report saying that console sales for Xbox are down bad once again. On one end, it's not just Xbox consoles, all console sales across all the platforms are down. And you know what? We are 4-5 years into this console's life cycle. This is about the time when things would just start to decline. Xbox has made it very clear that hardware sales are just a small slice of their overall gaming strategy going forward, so you can make the argument that ultimately they don't really care since their mind is on PC and cloud gaming growth. But I really want consoles to stick around, and I'm a little worried that if console sales continue to tumble for Xbox, it just has me thinking, if you are not willing to buy an Xbox console right now, what can Xbox do in order to get your money when they come out with the next generation lineup? We don't really know for sure because we know that they're leaving behind exclusive games. That is not going to be the differentiating factor anymore. But we also don't know a lot about the next gen Xboxes. Sure, I'm like 80-90% that there's going to be a handheld. Probably going to be like some sort of standard Series X-like console too. Maybe it'll have multiple storefronts like Steam, like Epic. We don't know. I do not envy the people who are working on the next generation Xboxes. They're sitting there thinking, damn, we got outsold by PlayStation 2 generations in a row. What do we do now? If Xbox sales continue to tumble like they are, they lose out on a ton of momentum heading into next generation. Momentum that, it's pretty hard to get back once you're behind. We saw them play catch up with the Xbox Series X and S when they delayed major first-party launch titles, effectively making it so the Series X and S launched with no exclusive games. We saw it in the Xbox One generation with so many different things surrounding that console's launch. The DRM stuff, it being more expensive than PlayStation 4, forcing people to buy Kinect. I would hate to see Xbox have to play catch up once again, because I do think that they're working on some really exciting stuff. Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff I have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Help me on my journey to 200,000 subs. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.